welcome to Left on Red, where a Gen X mom and gay millennial do socialism.
We've got left-wing views on the news you can use.
I'm Scott.
I'm Susan.
And today we're talking about the end of the liberal world order.
Which is like news you can use. And like, I think that this concept kind of encapsulates a lot of the news going on right now. So for example, people are in a tizzy over the Zelensky meeting, but it's like, you know that that's how it would have gone down with Trump, right? Trump has made it very clear that he was aligning himself with Putin, right?
Well, let's back up for a second. Let's say the topic is the slow decline of the liberal world order, because I'm a
nothing
C.H.U.D.
ever happens.
Yes, nothing ever happens. They call him C.H.U.D. because it's a chud, but like Buddha.
Okay.
I don't really know the origins of any of this. But
Okay.
anyway.
All right. So liberal international order.
The reason I say that is because allegedly the United States and Ukraine are set to sign this mineral deal. So let's explain to people what happened this week.
I don't know about the mineral deal. You explain that. Okay. But basically the U.S. and the European Union the past 3 odd years has provided military assistance to the Ukraine in its efforts to fight Russia, which has been engaged in a pretty aggressive land grab war, violating the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of the Ukraine. But, it's one of those...
It's just Ukraine, Susan.
Okay, sorry. For that. Yeah. You know what? Why I say the Ukraine? Because of Seinfeld, I think.
Yeah, it's because you're a Russian chauvinist.
But it's also true, is it the United States? Or anyway... East Asians don't have definite articles. I'm going to make a culture claim right now.
Nice.
So if I do it incorrectly, it's because I didn't grow up with it at home. Anyway.
And in Greek, everything has the article. So you would always say like the Germany, the Greece, the United States, the Ukraine,
Korean
the Russia.
doesn't have indefinite, definite, or pronoun articles. None at all. So it's
no pronouns. Wow. Very anti-woke.
But none at all. So it's like if you meet an East Asian and they make some errors along this line, then it's just because they need to learn, Anyway, so nothing new under the sun. It's not like Russia didn't do this in the past, right? With the whole Crimea thing, which frankly, I don't know all the details of because I feel like border skirmishes and fighting over territory kind of goes with that part of the world. But anyway, so there was a
very
sit down.
Liberal world order statement of you.
Right. Because that was all one country for a very long time, right?
For most of modern history,
right.
Ukraine was not an independent nation. It was usually part of the Russian Empire or the Polish-Lithuanian Empire, parts of it of the Ottoman Empire and like the South, right? Like it historically has not been an independent country. Doesn't mean that it doesn't have like a claim to that, right?
But that's complicated,
today,
right? We're not.
Exactly.
I'm not somebody who thinks everybody who has a claim to nationhood gets to have one. And I had fights with people about this. Does Quebec get to have its own independent country? Like, I don't know.
I don't think there should be any independent countries, right? There should be one. Like, obviously, I don't think that tomorrow, but I think you and I would agree as socialists that independent, separate nations aren't a necessary thing. That as long as we have some level of collective governments, democracy, and human rights, that's what's important.
But nor are we saying that nobody has a right to it and the current system. So please don't inundate us with hate mail. I'm not here to defend myself against angry Basque people, for example. Oops, sorry. I don't claim to know everything about those fights either. But anyway, so they had to sit down and Trump was kind of like, you all been behaving badly to Zelensky. But historically, Zelensky was beloved by the liberals, by the Democratic Party.
He even campaigned for Joe Biden in Pennsylvania. Not literally officially, but he was using his celebrity status in support of the Democrats.
Yeah, people historically have been thirsty for him, right?
He is hot. There's this one photo of him where he's extremely muscular, and so someone was complaining that he doesn't wear suits.
Yeah, he wears very tight-fitting clothes. Right?
I'm very grateful for the tight-fitting clothes.
Stylianos hates suits.
Yes.
Anyway, so under this new administration, the Trump presidency is not going to continue on with the support and has said, you need to negotiate a peace deal.
Which So this is going to be the theme of this section for me. I don't hate all of the Trump foreign policy moves so far. And don't get this twisted as like any defense of Trump. I want him gone immediately. I think he should be impeached already. He's like out. No support for Donald Trump whatsoever. This is not even critical support. I'm simply saying that the things that he's doing on foreign policy, and he's doing them for the wrong reasons. He's not doing this because he's an internationalist that wants to end U.S. empire, right? He's doing this because he's an idiot. But it just so happens that the things that he's doing are eroding U.S. power abroad, which I think I'll put on my campus hat here, is not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing right now. With Ukraine, I think what's really like interesting about it is that Zelensky was asking for American ground troops stationed in Ukraine. He was saying that if there's a peace deal, I want a guarantee that Russia will never invade again. And I support a guarantee that no country ever invades another country ever. Like, I think that's nice. There should never be war ever again. But I also don't think that landing American troops in Ukraine is a pro-peace move.
Also, historically, Americans don't want American troops on the ground anywhere, right? Since the unsuccessful, so those of you who have watched Black Hawk Down, that's a dramatization of this, like the unsuccessful use of U.S. troops to deliver humanitarian assistance in Somalia in the early 1990s, it went bad. And Americans are very soured on ground troops. Like aerial bombardment, great. Drone warfare, 10 out of 10. But no, people don't like boots on the ground. They don't like to see images of American soldiers being dragged around and getting involved. And so there has been this distaste towards active intervention probably since Vietnam. But let's back up a little bit.
It didn't stop us from Iraq or Afghanistan. But yes,
right.
That's why it was bizarre to me that when Biden pulled out of Afghanistan, which is one of the best things I think he did ever, he got so much pushback from, I guess, a liberal media that supports his world order. So, sorry, Trump was mean to Zelensky. Zelensky was kind of asking for way too much and overplaying his hand. Maybe Trump was being a bully. Him and J.D. Vance were being bullies. It was very
being
unbecoming.
Rude.
Yeah, they were being cruel.
Everybody was all the libs were they were clutching their pearls and their smelling salts.
Brad Lander was like, if I were mayor, Zelensky would be speaking in New York City tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't want to take shots at Brad Lander, but what? Apparently, the liberal Americans love
the media.
Zelensky.
They do.
Yeah.
And I actually, one of my favorite moments in the past 4 years, I kind of unironically like the Minions. Because I saw Minion flower pots, and then Minion colors are the same as the Ukrainian flags, and then the Ukrainian flags festooning the Minion flower pots. That to me is peak white liberalism, sort of cultural expression.
I want to get one.
You want to get a Minion flower pot?
The Ukrainian Minion, yeah.
I really do like Minions. I spent a lot of money on Minions movies with my kids.
That's good.
Anyway, so yeah. And now there's going to be a negotiated peace settlement.
Well, maybe. So apparently there was this debate on a minerals deal that Ukraine has some rare earth elements and other minerals that are valuable. And they're making a deal. They're negotiating that they would allow the revenue of some of that to go to the United States in exchange for weapons, or maybe they'd be paying past payments of weapons or future. Anyway, that's sort of what Zelensky was supposed to be discussing with Trump. Those talks fell through. Now there is a news report saying that the United States and Ukraine are set to sign this minerals deal. So as much as Trump is making this rhetoric about I want peace in the region, and as much as Zelensky seems to be overplaying his hand and asking for some pretty belligerent moves, there might be a minerals deal moving forward. All this to say, I think there is this broader thing happening where Donald Trump is doing things like shutting down U.S. aid. Everyone calls it USAID. I just thought it was USAID.
Well, it's U.S. Yeah, I mean, AID is just Agency for International Development.
I thought we called it aid, USAID. Anyway.
Well, no, USAID would be not the acronym. That's all.
Yeah. So he's shutting down USAID. He's pulling back commitments that the United States has in other countries. He's kind of instituting tariffs on our two closest allies and trading partners, Canada and Mexico. and he might undo the tariffs tomorrow. I don't know. But he's doing all of these things that are isolating himself from Europe. Elon Musk said that the United States should withdraw from NATO and the UN, which is hilarious because I think a lot of
We made
people,
them. We literally made them.
yes, and a lot of people who are like who are desperate to end United States imperialism think that NATO is one of like the most powerful weapons of it. So for them to suggest removing the United States from NATO, that would be great. It would
Okay,
be great.
let's just back up a second, in case you don't know what is a liberal international order. Like,
Thank
just very
you.
quickly. All right, so the whole idea is that after World War II, you have to have some kind of order in order to have things like trade, right? Because there's no government in the international system. So I'm putting my professor hat on. And so before, like, it was like the rule of Pax Britannica, the UK had set up a world system, but after the end of World War I, there was no system, and that's where you got like all the, the League of Nations failed and the chaos of the Great Depression. So the US comes out victorious. Unlike any other major player, there's no land battles like fought in the US, right? So there's no destruction of our civilian infrastructure. We got all this money because we were selling to both sides for a really long time. We got all this gold. So the US is like, we're going to set up a world system. We're going to set up like a trade system. We called it the Generalized Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which later became the World Trade Organization. We set up the International Monetary Fund to help countries with their temporary like problems with balance of payment, which is like money flowing in, not matching money flowing out. And then we created the World Bank, which is supposed to be like a development bank, right? And the main goal was like, if we did Marshall Plan, we wanted to help these European countries, which even though they have like a higher standard of living than us now, we're like literally starving at the end of World War II, right? And so we did this, and we spent a lot of money all over the world because we were in a position to do so. We set up the UN, right? We set up the things like the Security Council that gave the victors, right, the Soviet Union, US, UK, France, like China, undo like veto power, right? We set up this whole system that would create stability and benefit us, right? So it was made possible by our victoriousness, and it would maintain our hegemony, supremacy in that system. But we had to pay into it to keep it stable. And in that system, all kinds of things happened, including the unification of Europe, including the rise of the Asian tigers, right? So like the South Koreas, the eventual development through import substitution of like Latin American countries, like India engaging in neoliberal reforms in the 1980s, right?
And
the
all
rise
of
of
this
China.
has been, like, to the United States is like the United States wanted all of this to happen.
Well, not all of it was controlled by the U.S., but it all fit into the liberal order, right? And so, like, the United States probably didn't think China would become a threat, but the U.S. wanted China to have normalized trading
It was
relations.
that like the Nixon meeting with Deng Xiaoping
Right.
that like started to open up China to the rest of the world, and China started making these market reforms, and the United States wanted that.
Well, I don't know if the United States wanted it, but the United States was going to start. It changed its orientation to like PRC, like as things happened, right? And also included things like, the non-proliferation treaty where we get to have weapons, but no one else gets to have them, right? Nuclear weapons, and then all sorts of other things, right? So the dollar becoming the most dominant and important form of currency out there, even though we were supposed to create this dollar standard that kept everyone's currency stable. And then we were like, oopsies. They're like, why don't we just sell and trade world currency based on how we feel? And guess who feels the best about which currency? Everybody loves to feel good about the dollar. I read somewhere once that in China, they were GoFundMe type crowdfunding real estate investments in the US because everybody wanted US based investments. Like that's how, like our number one export is our dollar. Like people want dollars, right? People want to get paid in dollars. People want dollar denominated investments and that kind of thing. Anyway, so, but that like we've lost our power. So the basic, like if you're a scholar of international relations, the materialist basis of our power has eroded. We're not that powerful economically anymore. We're not like that. We don't have the preponderance militarily anymore. And we are sort of like domestic peace situation we had at the end of World War II. When we think about that as like compromise with trade unions, high productivity, high consumption, right? That all broke down, right? We don't have that anymore. Now we have like services, finances, and like a decimated industrial base. So that's all. So the material base, but like we have stickiness, right? So like American soft power is very strong, right? People still like at the end of the day, my colleague in grad school told me this joke. He's like, oh, when the spy plane got shot down over China, I went to the U.S. embassy to protest, and we were like, wah. And the next day I came by and said, I want my student visa, right? So like, people love to critique the U.S., and the U.S. has long been an object of like, the imperial overreach, and we hate Iraq and Afghanistan, all that stuff. But everybody wants to come here. They love our movies, and we're still like a major soft power yielder. But like, the fundamental problem with the U.S., right, and all these Western democracies, that neoliberalism plus increasingly diverse and deindustrialized populations cannot like allow democracy to be stable. Like it's just not working, right? It's not just us. It's the UK, Germany. Look to any quote unquote established Western democracy, and you see the basis of like liberal ideals falling to the wayside. And so the US's system was a liberal international order and was based on a liberal democratic domestic order. And all those things are going to the wayside. And like all you're going to see now, and I'm one of those people, right? Like I study human rights. I like human rights, even though I'm a socialist, because I'm like, you got to not throw us in jail for having opinions first.
Don't say even though.
No, but like I get yelled at all the time by like Marxists for being a lib, for liking human rights and like studying them. Like you see the scorn. It's always like white guys with impressive facial hair with pure scorn, just disgust at me.
Could be because liberalism has a claim on human rights. Human rights are like an
human rights are liberal
idea
in their origins, but like, socialists have made a huge part of human rights, right? Like workers' rights or like rights to healthcare or housing, all the rights that matter are from socialists, right? Like the ones that matter in terms of like challenging the system, not that like right to free speech and religion don't matter. They matter, right? But all those things are being torn down. Like even the liberal ideas, like don't discriminate people based on like race, that's all being challenged now too. I used to think that was a bedrock of American capitalism, and I used to say that too, and I believe it's true that the great legitimizing discourse of capitalism is diversity. But now that that's being challenged, there's no legitimizing discourse for capitalism.
That's an interesting statement. I feel like I would argue that capitalism works in part by racializing the working class so that it can pay some workers even less and treat them even worse. That capitalism encourages racial discrimination.
I think capitalism does do that, but late modern capitalism can say we're so good at diversity, we're woke, right? And that's not my argument, right? That diversity is the great legitimizing force, right?
But that capitalists used it in that way. I understand what you're saying.
And so and capitalists can do it better, right? They can have like a rainbow coalition of a boardroom, right? So now it's like no one's even pretending anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You see like the ending of DEI, but what they're really doing is just DEI in reverse. They're not ending programs that were elevating unqualified individuals to certain positions. They are elevating unqualified individuals based on their political beliefs or their race and their background.
Right, but the thing is that DEI never elevated people without qualifications. It was always two equally qualified applicants. You would prioritize someone who came from an underrepresented group. That's how it always worked.
Or you would basically understand, okay, someone who is not a white man probably is going to be looked at worse because of some level of racial bias. And so we have to give that person extra consideration. It's crazy now to see all of these really like not very qualified or intelligent or experienced people now being elevated to all different sorts of positions of power.
And those who are like qualified and educated, even when they have the ideology, they're like, I'm out of here, right? Like the Danielle Sassoons, who is like a Federalist Society. Like she clerked with some Supreme Court justice who's very conservative, but she's like qualified and has professional ethics, and that's like not allowed anymore.
Yeah, sure. This is just a fascist power grab. I'm not, which is, I think, I would tell her, well, this is what you were working towards.
Right. But the thing is that, is this what capitalists want or not? We've been fighting about this, right? In our group chat, it's like capitalists should have seen this coming because this hurts their bottom line. And Marx once said that, right? this is one of my, I'm not like a Marxist who like walks around with Marx quotes in my head. I have like 4. The state is but the executive body for the capitalist class. So the state is supposed to be managing conflicts, right? And like a good state under capitalism would say things like, hey, you can't keep burning fossil fuels because your ability to make a profit is going to be destroyed if the planet's burning. So stop. And then the capitalists be like, okay, we're going to start making a lot of money off of, renewables, right? So because the end goal can't just be short-term profit, it has to be your ability to keep exploiting until the end of time.
Well, this is like another like Marxist idea that capitalism sows the seeds of its own destruction, right? I remember reading about this where it was Hadastier's book, where she was saying that capitalists, like the competition in capital, is bad for capitalists. It shuts down many.
Marx thought that the reason why capitalism would sow the seeds of its own destruction is because it was underpaying its workers so much that there would be this like crisis of production. No one would be able to buy anything, and then the workers would be like, "F this," right?
But there's like other things like the competition inherent in capital, the way capitalists kind of like abuse and overuse natural resources. It's a system that kind of like burns really fast and hot and burns itself. In this example of Donald Trump and ending the liberal world order and it starts liberalism, it's kind of an interesting example of capitalists for so long pushed this right-wing party, and one of the most salient issues for that party was nationalism, right? And I think this is like historically what happens in fascist movements, where you have these kind of right-wing, close to market reformist people that identify nationalism and other conservative means as political growth. And then the nationalism kind of subsumes the capitalist and market reform part. And so now instead of getting this right-wing party that's just lowering everyone's taxes and reducing government spending and making it great for business, they also have to contend with this bizarre nationalist component that destroys the economy.
In my mind, that's only required because, or only made possible because of all the things we talked about on the show before, which was that a basic sense of community has eroded, right? And we can also think of the post-war period. Like I've talked about Robert Putnam on the show ad nauseum. Like, yes, I'm a fan. Okay. And it's not like I even agree with his arguments. I just like the concept of social capital, right? But like at the end of World War II was like a high point for Americans feeling connected. And like, even though we still had racism and segregation, in a lot of places, those social connections would transcend race. And they would transcend like religion and other sort of important identity markers because people were like all bowling together, right?
Yeah, he wrote Bowling Alone.
Right, but like the opening anecdote of Bowling Alone is about the guy who needs a kidney transplant, and it's a white guy, and he gets a kidney transplant from a black guy in his bowling league. And they're not even besties, right? It's like, oh, I've just known this guy for so long. Of course he can have my kidney, right? And the idea was that it's like it's not the most intimate social relationships that matter. It's having lots of like loose ties to lots of different people that makes you feel a sense of community, civic obligation, and an interest in democracy, right? Even if you're never political, right? And so there's so few spaces where you interact with people who are radically different than you. But as Stylianos knows, right? Sometimes I play pool at a pool place in Astoria, and like it's really really integrated. Sorry, it might be a little gender segregated. I'm often the only woman playing, but like people of all ages, people of all race and ethnicities, and like occupational and educational, but it tends to be more working class, I think, are there playing pool. Like a lot of retired people, a lot of young people, and they play pool with everyone plays pool with everybody else. And like people watch me like get a little bit better because I'm really bad, and they're like very like there's a sense of community if you're like a regular, right? But you don't even have to be a regular, right? So there's very few spaces like that, and the bowling league was one of them. I used to curl in Minnesota, and it kind of had that vibe too. But like yeah, we don't have that because we don't have time, and we don't have those spaces. We don't have.
My hot take is, I want to go back to the liberal international world order for a second, but my hot take is actually we do have time and we do have spaces. I kind of hate when people talk about the lack of third spaces online, because the third spaces, they're not physical locations. They're places where you meet other people. And a great example is this Dunkin' Donuts 3 blocks down from my house. And it's not it's actually kind of spacious as a Dunkin' Donuts as far as it goes.
I've definitely done canvases out of that Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, it's kind of big, and there's a ton of old people, old Greek immigrants that hang out there every
Right. So it's
day.
become a de facto senior center, and the McDonald's as well has become
Yes,
that
the
way.
McDonald's, that Dunkin' Donuts, this corner where people sit. These third space, the physical locations for you to meet other people physically exist. There
Right,
are
but they're
still
so
bowling
far.
alleys.
There's far fewer of those. I'm trying to say.
There
Like
might be fewer.
a lot. There used to be a place called Steinway Billiards, and it was like a huge hub for that community.
Yeah. Oh, is it closed now?
It's closed down. Yeah, like
Oh,
2 years ago.
I've went there
Yeah,
once
that's the
or
thing
twice,
is that like a lot of these places, like there's a bowling alley and a pool hall in Jackson.
Yes, some of
where I
them have
live.
closed. I'm still going to contend here, though, that in all of these examples that we listed, it's all older people who are going there. Younger people are not creating third spaces.
Right, and
You can
like
with your
online
friends.
is real. Like I believe online is real. I believe that people meet and make real relationships online, which I didn't believe before. My sister was like, "You're so wrong."
Yeah, but
right?
they need to bring those in real life.
You have to meet in real life, otherwise it's just not the same thing because you don't have that. Anyway, so you need democracy. For democracy, you need social capital. For democracy, you need to have a sense of social solidarity. For democracy, you need to have that compromise where you're like, workers deserve to be treated like humans, and that's broken down. All right, and so you have we have an international liberal order that's eroding. You have a domestic liberal compromise that's completely eroding.
And so you, the listener, need to go out and talk to some strangers and go make a third space exist.
I was talking to strangers this weekend, petitioning for Zoran Mamdani, which is very easy because as long as they live in New York City and they're a registered Democrat, they can sign your petition.
They can only sign one. I made this mistake.
Yeah. And people will come up to you and be like, no, I have a cool Zoran hat. And they're like, oh, are you petitioning for Zoran? And I'm like, read the hat. And yeah, people are excited because Zoran is talking about all these public things, right?
It's great to have a DSA candidate for a race people actually pay attention to and see in the news.
Right.
I'm
like
very
nobody pays
excited
attention to
about it.
assembly. No one pays people pay attention a little bit to city council, but
Not
like
even. People pay attention to mayor, governor, president, maybe senator, maybe Congress.
right. But so many people don't even know who their senators and their Congress members are, but they know who the mayor is.
Yeah,
And
exactly. People pay attention to mayor, governor, president.
all right, so we've talked about this for a long time. If anybody wants to talk about the international liberal order and you're better at this than us, send a DM to us.
Yes,
to
we'd love to
Stylianos.
talk to you. The final comment I wanted to make about that was I also think notable about the liberal international world order is that it was unipolar. It was the United States and everybody else.
Right, so the U.S. has to pay. Like when Trump whines about like, we don't pay us, Europe doesn't pay their fair share. It's like, okay, but we set up the system, right? So like the understanding is if we want to dominate, we have to pay in, right?
It reminds me of like relationships in the sense that there's a transaction. You can't just be like the dom daddy who has a sub who just is like agreeing. You have to provide a service to the sub. I'm sorry to Europe for making this sub dom analogy, but the domination, I think it's a great analogy because I think a lot of people who might support U.S. empire. And so again, I want to reiterate, I do not support U.S. empire. And I'm glad that Donald Trump is taking an axe to it. And by the way, earlier I said for some reason Nixon met with Deng Xiaoping. I have the decade completely off. He met with Mao Zedong, and I don't know why I missed
Deng Xiaoping
that.
didn't take power until 1978.
For me, Nixon, Reagan, Carter all happened in one decade together. Yeah, the 70s and 80s kind of...
Well, they are within a 10-year period of each other, for sure.
I know, but I feel like they're very different. Anyway, I'm so sorry.
Anyway, that's okay. It's because Stylianos is a baby.
But what's happening now is they're creating a new multipolar world order. And so Europe is feeling...
Or somebody like John Mearsheimer would say, it's been emerging, right? And that only a fool would not see Russia's actions coming from a mile away because Russia's always been chill as long as Ukraine was geared towards Russia. But Ukraine has been moving more towards the West. I'm not saying Ukraine deserved anything, but somebody like John Mearsheimer, who wrote an article at the end of the Cold War called Back to the Future, saying we're going to go back to this multipolar world that we had. John Mearsheimer is one of my favorite international relations realists, and he also wrote like a famous article called the Israel lobby. I don't know what the rest of the article is called, but him and Stephen Walt,
Look up his name.
two famous security scholars, wrote about like the role of the Israel lobby and the U.S.'s relationship to Israel. And so those are good guys to read. And also, he's a very clear writer, John Mearsheimer. Like my students are always like, I love the book. It's so easy to read. And I'm like, that's not the criteria I want you to use to think about text. But I'm glad you like to read it.
I think it's a fair. I understand where you're coming from. This is a fair.
Okay. We're gonna move on to the next section. We've already talked for way too long.
Multipolar world. It's going to get maybe a little bit more dangerous, but I think U.S. Empire ending is a good thing. And so shout out to China and maybe Europe and maybe a player or two from Africa and South America and India. Who knows? Anyway, on that note, spring is here. We're having our own emerging new world order in our personal lives, which is very exciting.
Not really. Nothing's really changing in personal life.
Nothing's changing that much.
But spring brings like plans of cleaning. Like I want to clean my apartment because one of my children lost an iPad, which I didn't think was possible. So we're going to clean. But also we have physical goals. With nicer weather, I want to go outside more.
Me too. I want to.
So bike. we used to have Muscle Minute where we talked about getting swole, but this is going to be like muscle moment.
Well, I'm trying to lose weight, and
I'm always trying to lose weight. He doesn't.
I know
doesn't
not goes very well. Well, I hit 215 again, which was bad because that's an increase. I was around 205. I'm now back down to 210. There we go. And my goal is to hit 190 this year.
Okay.
So
I have no such goals, but
yeah, you wanna get more muscular,
right? I always want to get more muscular, but the thing is, it's pretty hard for me because I don't eat enough and I don't sleep enough. But
we just switch diets.
Yeah. Because of DSA, so NYC DSA through our membership, right? Committee and other efforts has like chats that are geared towards non-political stuff. Hey, it's a way to build social capital. And so I was in the running chat for a minute, but I had to drop out because I hurt myself right before the Zoran like campaign ad drop. Because of the running chat, the DSA running club, I ended up signing up for a 10K in Central Park this past winter, and I ran 3 times a week outside. And it was cold this winter.
3 times a week? You know, you were posting running a lot, and I was like, I didn't think about how often a week it was.
Yeah, it was 3 times a week. So I did 1 recovery run, 1 speed run, 1 long run.
In the freezing cold. It was very cold
like
this
when I ran the 10K with another DSA member, and we're so legit that we're listed as an official running club under New York Road Runners Club.
Very cool.
Which is one of the oldest road running clubs in America. They're like the OG, ones who started the trend in the 70s. We have our own NYC DSA club you can associate with. So then I liked it so much, I signed up for a half marathon, which might be a mistake. I'm running a half marathon in late April, but that's part of my spring, awakening. My spring goals is to run a half marathon. And I'm 44 years old and I've never run that long before, but I was just like, why not? Sure.
I'm not going to run a half marathon. Well, first of all, Susan, congratulations to you running that long after having never run that long before.
I ran 8 miles last Thursday. I'm going to run 9.5 this Thursday.
Wow. That's a lot.
No, it's boring and long.
Yeah, I bet. But that's really cool that you're doing that. I would like to run more this year. I'm remaining on my boring, way too easy lifting routine, but I would like to run. I got a friend of ours to run.
So Joe is now running because of us.
I saw.
I told him just go run.
Congratulations to him. I would like to run. I will wait for the weather to get warmer, even though I have all this cold weather running gear that I don't like to use. Yeah, I'm gonna try, and I am such a slow and bad runner. By the way, this was our friend Andrea really revealed to me the secret, which is that if you want to start running and you haven't been at all ever, like me, you have no cardio whatsoever, start running really slowly. And I downloaded the Nike Run app, which everyone loves, and there's
Stylianos influenced me to download that as well. That's how I trained for my 10K.
Well, it's good, and they
have a training plan.
And there's a hot coach who I don't know what he looks like. What's his name?
Is it Coach Bennett?
The guy in the starter run. Is that him?
All right. Because it's also a British guy.
Oh, no, this is an American accent.
Okay. And there's also like a woman in Dubai. I was just like, all right.
Oh,
She's
I
like,
don't like that.
yeah, she's like, in Dubai, it's hot. And I'm like, I bet it was freezing, you know?
It must be Coach Bennett.
Okay.
And so he tells you through the beginning of the run, like, slow down, slow down, slow down. And so Andrea basically explained this to me. Way too many beginner runners start way too fast because you think of running as this like kind of fast or high paced or intense activity. And if you actually go really, really slow, slower than you think, you'll find that it's a lot more doable, a lot more enjoyable. And I was at the end of 10 miles and I was like, I could keep going. I could keep doing this. And it was a 10-minute mile. It could have been
This
worse.
is the coach guy. Oops.
Oh, wait, let's
He's
see
right
him.
there.
I can't really see what he looks like. He sounds hot. I don't want to see him. I don't want the illusion to be ruined.
He's corny. He's corny, you know?
Yeah,
but
it's hot.
I like him too because he's always like really proud of you for going on the run. And I'm proud of you too. And I'm proud of me. So I want to get strong because I don't know. A lot of people out there seem to have like lots of worst case scenario ideas going through their head. And if there is a worst case scenario, it's good to be physically fit, you know?
This was very bad Twitter discourse a couple weeks ago where people were saying that socialists should be physically fit and strong for the revolution.
Well, I was just thinking if they threw us in a work camp, maybe I wouldn't get much.
Yeah, I guess.
I can get a lot of work done.
I don't want to entertain doomsday scenarios, and I don't want to tell you should be fit for the revolution. It feels a little LARPing. You should do what you can that keeps your body healthy or helps get your body more healthy.
Well,
whatever you can do.
I saw something on Twitter. It's something that you and I both follow, a DSA member, who said like was talking about hope. And I think if the news is making you unhappy and hopeless, then one of the best things you can do to keep the hope, because you don't have to feel hopeful, but you have to have hope, if that makes sense. That was
I think I saw the same tweet.
Yeah, it was great. It's like we can have hope without feeling hopeful, because your feelings are things that feelings change, right? They're like a response to the circumstances. And sometimes I feel sad, but I'm not sad, right? I'm not a sad person. Sometimes I can feel sad. I can feel exhausted. I can feel like giving up, but I don't give up. And like I think that one of the best things you can do when things feel like so out of control is like to take care of yourself. And one of the best things you can do to take care of yourself is to exercise. So lifting weights, yoga, stretching, running, whatever you like, playing like sports, which Stylianos and I aren't sports people, but we support those who do. I'm
going to get into watching sports this year.
Oh, I'm like watching the Mets. Like I'm a fair weather's Mets
I'm really
fan.
into sports gambling, and
I know, but you don't watch. I
was watching this hockey game because I had money on it.
Which one?
And it was the USA versus Canada, not the final, the first one in the tournament. And they just started beating each other up. Like
you enjoyed it, right?
Yeah, I was like, this is great. So maybe and the hockey team here plays at Madison Square Garden. That could be fun. I could go watch that. Another spring goal. So you should exercise, by the way. You should do what you can, what works for your body, what helps
without
you be
judgment or like comparison to others. Like just don't ever worry about others. If I compared myself like as a intellectual to Robert Putnam, I would never get out of bed. But Robert Putnam is nothing to do with me. He's just somebody I like, you know?
What's that phrase? Comparison is the thief of
joy. And there's already too many things out there that steal joy. So like, no, I'm self-centered when it comes to my own accomplishments and progress because I don't care about other people. It has nothing to do with me.
What's the thing? Like you're supposed to be like comparing yourself to yourself. Like,
yeah, but you don't have to do that either because I don't have the energy I had when I was 20. You know what I mean?
Very real.
So whatever. Like I'm happy to get up every day and do my best. And sometimes it's not a lot. But like capitalism wants us to overwork ourselves, and so does Protestantism, and so does being in an Anglo-Saxon culture. So,
unfortunate American realities.
Very unfortunate. Who was I talking to? Oh yeah, I was talking to somebody about today's Carnival, right? Or Mardi Gras.
Yeah, I only know this because my Twitter is full of like the usually naked Brazilian men, but now they're all in like carnival outfits.
Yeah, so they're even more naked, and it's really warm out. Yeah, so I also have Brazilians in my life who are not responding to their emails because they shut down the universities for a whole week. right? Anyway, so I was talking to this woman from my work who's from Andorra, and I don't know anything about Andorra, but I was like, oh, today's Carnival. Because I was telling her how I got a piece of king cake from this guy whose family has Cajun roots in Louisiana. And it's like it's not my idea of a good time, right? Like, like a sweet yeasted cake, but I'll eat it. Because I'm like, I was like, unfortunately, I'm just too Anglo-Saxon. We don't get the day off. We don't enjoy ourselves. We don't have a fat Tuesday. But like, what would be better than us all getting a week off during like the dreariest part of the winter to just say, hey, let the good times roll. Let's eat a bunch of deep fried, fatty, delicious foods and like be joyful. Like we don't get to do that because we're Anglo-Saxon.
Well, you should understand that all of that stuff happens because there's supposed to be a 40-day period of like fasting, reflection, and
right,
prayer.
sure, but instead we basically have 365 days of that.
I know, yeah. Most
like
people are not doing
reflection.
the Lent.
Right. So we have 365 days of like denying ourselves, like being Protestant, working ourselves to the bone, and feeling guilty for our sins of being like poor under capitalism. So you know what? Why can't we have some joy too? So I don't celebrate Carnival. I'm not from that kind of like, I'm not from the fun Christians. And Stylianos, frankly, I don't think that y'all are fun Christians either.
Yeah, well, I think it's difficult because Orthodox Christians have historically had so much like oppression.
Right. But
like
so do the Latin Americans, right? But they're still like freaking partying it up. So the Greeks confuse me because you have as much beauty and iconography as like the Catholics, but you're not like enjoying life. So
yeah,
like
the church is a
confused.
little bit like, I don't know, we're a little bit pro suffering.
Yeah. So I'm like, that's
It's
very
a dramatic
Protestant.
culture. You have to understand. You can't take any of that like. It's all surface value. When you see like Greek people being like really dramatic and crying and screaming, like you have to understand like, oh, it's a surface level. This is a culturally okay thing to express. They don't really feel that in their heart.
Sure.
You
But
know?
I'm just saying that y'all don't have like a party religion the way that the Catholics do, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
true. That's very
And
true.
Protestants also, like, we hate partying so much that the Puritans tried to illegalize Christmas during the English Civil War. The
The
original war on
Protestants,
Christmas.
when they first started protesting the Catholic Church, many looked to the Orthodox Church. It was like an early thing where they were like, maybe we should just turn back to this because the Orthodox Church had a lot of the things that the Protestants wanted at the time.
Right, so no fun.
Not
None of
necessarily
the
no fun,
drama of like the
but there was like
conclave,
there was no pope.
Right.
This is a really great. This is I don't think this is why I am this way, but I like to imagine in the grand scheme of things. One of the reasons I feel like I have a very like personally egalitarian mindset is in the Orthodox religion, there is a like the ecumenical patriarch of Constantinople, but he's called the first among equals. So all the patriarchs are equal to each other. One of them is just like the first. So he has like a little bit more privilege and status, but he doesn't have the primacy
Right. So
power of
there's
like,
not the same pageantry and like
there's pageantry, but he's not. The Pope is like God's chosen on earth, and this guy's just like the first among equals.
right.
There's a
not as
different.
fun is what I'm hearing.
I
So
was saying it's more egalitarian.
right, which
Which
okay, but here's
sorry.
the fun thing about y'all is you don't read the way that
Yes, well, Catholic
Protestants
and
do.
Orthodox.
Yeah.
Only
So
Protestants want to read the
right, they want to
Bible.
read everything.
But you
So
know what? Today, everyone is a little Protestant because you can read. Literacy takes
that's
away
literacy is the
from
one thing the Protestants did well, right?
yeah,
Like
and
even the women could read.
it steals you from ignorance, where previously you might live in ignorance and doubt, and the priest just tells you how things are, and so you don't have to think, and that's it. But now that you're literate, you suddenly have to think, and you have questions, and you have doubts. The flip side of that, of course, is before you could not think, and you were not allowed to,
Right. So maybe
and
you
now
were
you
more
can.
happy, right? You were more happy as a peasant. Okay, on that note, we've gone way longer. We were supposed to have a
Yes,
30-minute
I had
episode.
other spring goals, but I'll give you the titillating sentence, which is I'm stalking someone on Reddit, and my spring goal is to find this person in real life.
Yeah, I'm still confused about what's going on.
Yeah,
And every now and then, Stylianos will feed me a little tidbit, and I'm like, "What is going on?"
it's a long story. I think it's like a person who's posting online as a fake persona,
Right,
but I
and
want to
evidently
find
has
the
a
real.
fantastic physique.
Oh my god, yeah. He says he's a 6'3", 300 pound competition level bodybuilder on a ton of steroids. And I remember reading this, and he lives in my neighborhood, and I remember reading this, and I'm like, I would have seen, he says he takes up 2 subway seats. I would have seen this person. There's no way this guy's real. Summary, I don't think he's real. I've compiled an incredible amount of information about the person who's posting. We think we have an address. I'm like staking it out. I'm going to find the person who's
if
writing
you
this stuff
know
online.
this 330 pound, 6'3"
Just 300
competition.
pounds.
What? 300 pounds? Okay, my bad. So this person who, a very impressive sized competitive bodybuilder in Astoria, our Stylianos' DMs are open, mine are not, because I make them I'm a woman on the internet, and I'm just like, no, I don't think so. So I had posted a picture of me with the Zoron hat, and somebody posted, no thank you. Like, I'm just like, no, I'm not being offered. Nothing's being offered to you. But just if you're a woman on the internet, I think that there's just a certain brand of person online who wants to tell you how horrible and ugly and undesirable you are at all times. So I'm just like, gonna keep my DMs closed. So
yeah, there's one. I have some lovely DMs. Sorry to you. Well, I think you probably would not have found these desirable either, but some lovely DMs from men in Brazil who tell me that they think about me all the time, that I'm perfect to them.
And today is the day to be lovely in Brazil.
Well, they're having. See, I should go to Brazil one year for Carnival and have a great time.
Yeah, we should all go to Brazil one year for Carnival.
That would be fun. Well, podcast.
Instead, I'm gonna go to Brazil in April. So maybe you could have a guest host on.
That's funny. I need this guy who was like, come to Amazonas. I was like,
right. I'm gonna be in Rio for an academic conference, so we can record that Sunday before I leave. So yeah.
Well, anyway, thank you all.
That's part of my spring goals, is going to Rio to see the men who desire Stylianos.
Well, he said Amazonas, which is a state in like northwest Brazil, which
is that where the Amazon
very
is?
Far away from Rio. What?
Is that where the Amazon is, or they're just a coincidence?
I think the Amazon runs through
Amazonas?
Much bigger chunk, but I'm assuming that is part of where it is.
I'm sure you have fans in Rio as well.
I'm sure, yeah. We'll find someone over there. Right. Anyway, well, thank you all
if anybody wants to give anything to Stylianos while I'm in Rio, get in touch with me. So, like a very small bathing suit or something like that.
That's funny. I need a little Speedo.
No, if you give me your measurements in centimeters, maybe I can pick you up one, because they sell them on the beach.
Oh, they do? That's fun. You know what I really want? I would never wear this, but I think it would be very funny. It's not even like a Speedo. It's like half of a thong. It's literally just like a little thing that covers your genitals and like a string around.
Well, that sounds very Brazilian to me.
Yeah, one side of your leg, and that's it. And it looks ridiculous. I think it would be very funny to wear once and never again.
All right.
Not
everyone,
around children.
Happy spring. On that note.
Yeah, this is more of a summer vibe, but happy spring. I hope spring opens up to you.
Spring is when we start thinking about frolicking in the sun.
Fair. Well, my
brain mentally is already in like the hottest part of July.
Well,
so
as of this week, I will be fasting for Great Lent, so I will not be thinking about frolicking. I will be spending my
fasting all the time. What does fasting mean?
It's not like Muslim fasting where you don't eat when the sun is up and then you eat when the sun is down or before. It's more like, so if I was legit, and I used to do this in past years, I would be fully vegan. But in this case, and like you're not supposed to have oil, and like if you're like a monk, you have 1 apple a day and that's it, right? So the Orthodox Church is pretty chill about like, well, I don't think the church is formally chill. People are culturally chill, and so my mom was like, yeah, you can eat meat a few times a week, whatever, who cares?
Okay, so just like more like a Great Depression-y era.
Yeah, well, so I will be not vegan this year because I didn't prepare for it, but I will be not eating meat until Easter, and maybe on Wednesdays and Fridays I'll be the full vegan.
Oh wow, let's make some tempeh.
Yeah, that's usually what I do. Usually a lot of like soy because I don't really like vegetables.
No, tempeh is gluten.
But like that's my point. Like
okay.
I think
soy
tempeh
is
like,
soy. Sorry, I was thinking about seitan.
Yeah, but soy, whatever, like fake meat is the vibe.
Spring 2025, Stylianos is a soy boy. You heard it here first.
Well, thanks, folks, for listening. I'm Scott.
I'm Susan.
And solidarity forever.